research by SACHIN KARNIK. You know, right
Yeah.
now, as you are listening to this, you might be doing something incredibly mundane.
Yeah, I mean, you could be prepping a meal in the kitchen, right? Like chopping some vegetables.
Exactly. Just listening to the knife hit the cutting board. Or maybe you're commuting to work with a coffee in the cup holder.
Or just grabbing a quick sandwich at your desk, barely even chewing before you swallow it.
Right. Because, well, we tend to think of eating and digesting food as pure biology. Like, we treat it like plumbing.
Totally. It's just a strict chemical transaction to us most of the time.
You put a certain amount of calories into the machine, your stomach acid breaks those calories down, and, you get a certain amount of kinetic energy out. We just treat it as completely ordinary.
It is the absolute definition of a routine bodily function. I mean, unless we get a stomach ache or we're specifically tracking our macros for a diet, we are entirely unconscious of the fact that we are metabolizing the world around us.
But what if that simple everyday act of eating that sandwich isn't just biology at all?
Yeah.
What if every single time you swallow a bite of food, you are participating in a literal cosmic event? Welcome to this deep dive. Today our mission is to unpack the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
And specifically, we're looking at its radically brilliant, just mind-bending take on digestion and cosmic nourishment.
Yeah, because our sources today map out this concept of Vajana, which is the divine digestive fire. We are going to trace the journey of a single bite of food.
Starting all the way from a nuclear reaction in a star.
Exactly. Traveling into the soil, moving up a plant stalk, and landing right in your stomach. And we're going to explore how this ancient text claims that the universe is literally transforming itself into your internal vitality.
What's fascinating here is how the philosophical framework we're working with completely reorients how you understand your own physical form.
Yeah.
It takes the grossest, most physical, most, animalistic aspects of human existence, hunger, metabolism, digestion, and it elevates them to the level of a divine cosmic ritual.
So you stop being a passive consumer of calories.
Exactly. You become an active participant in this ancient, ongoing cosmic exchange.
But before we can understand the fire burning in our bellies, we have to understand the architecture of the universe that this fire is supposedly operating in. Right.
Right. You can't understand the furnace if you don't understand the house.
So true. The sources take that old, slightly cliche saying, you are what you eat, and they just blow it up to a macrocosmic scale. They introduce this image of the Ashwatha tree, and reading through the notes, this is clearly not your average oak or maple tree in the backyard.
No, far from it. The Ashwatha is the sacred fig tree, and in the very first verse of chapter 15, the Gita describes this tree in a way that just completely inverts our normal earthly understanding of botany.
How so?
Well, the text describes it as Hrivamulam, which means its roots are located above.
Wait, above.
Yeah, up in the transcendent or divine realm. And then it says it is atakam, meaning its branches are growing downward into the manifest material world that we occupy.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to visualize this properly. The roots are suspended in the sky, in the divine cloud, so to speak.
Right.
And the branches are plunging downward toward the ground. Why use such a disorienting upside-down image right out of the gate?
It's a deliberate provocation, really. It's meant
Yeah.
to shift your metaphysics. I mean, think about ordinary botany for a second.
Okay.
The sources of life for a normal tree, the water, the minerals, the nutrients, and the dirt, they're beneath us. They're grounded in the muck and the mud, right?
And the growth spreads upward, reaching for the sky.
Exactly. But by inverting this topology, the text is making a profound claim about the nature of reality. It tells us that cause, measure, and ultimate value don't come from the ground up.
They sit above the system they sustain.
Spot on. The manifest universe, which the text refers to as Saisara, this continuous cycle of conditioned, changing existence, it doesn't generate its own life. It draws its actual vitality, its sap, from a transcendent, unchanging root that sits outside of time and space.
So if the roots are plugged into the divine up top, and we are the branches down here on the physical plane, how does the actual data or the nourishment transmit from top to bottom?
That's the big question.
Because the text also mentions these downward branches are spreading horizontally. I'm trying to picture how a downward growing branch suddenly shoots sideways.
Well, the horizontal spread is where the human experience really begins. The sources explain that these branches expand horizontally fueled by the three gunas.
The gunas. Remind me what those are again.
So the gunas are the fundamental qualities or threads of material nature. You have sattva, which is clarity, light, and harmony.
Okay, sattva is clarity.
Then you have rajas, which is passion, movement, and drive. And finally, you have tamas, which is inertia, darkness, and dullness.
Got it. Clarity, passion, inertia.
Right. These qualities act as the dynamic energy, almost like the rain and the wind, that cause the branches to tangle and spread outward. And all over these horizontal branches, there are these tender little shoots and buds popping out.
And what are the buds?
The text identifies these buds as the vyayas, the sense objects.
So the VIs are like the things in the material world we want to look at: touch, taste, smell, and consume.
Precisely. They are the sights, sounds, and physical pleasures that our senses are constantly hunting for.
So we're just hunting buds.
Basically, the text is setting up this brilliant and highly cautionary metaphysical economy. We are kept alive by this invisible vertical nourishment coming from the divine root above.
But because we're embodied beings, we get easily distracted.
We get entirely entangled horizontally. We chase the sense objects. We get caught up in the gunas. We spend our entire lives reaching sideways, trying to find fulfillment in the little buds on the branches.
Fueled by our cravings and anxieties.
Yeah, and our aversions. It's a horizontal trap.
You know, that feels incredibly resonant right now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how modern life operates. This horizontal entanglement sounds exactly like an algorithmic social media feed.
That is a great comparison.
Right. I mean, the algorithm is practically built out of rajas, all that passion and outrage, and tamas just mindless scrolling and inertia. It feeds you exactly what your base senses crave.
And you just click from one shiny sense object to the next?
Exactly. You're endlessly moving horizontally across the branches, completely forgetting that you're a tree that actually needs vertical sunlight to survive.
That is a phenomenal modern application of the concept, because when you are caught in that horizontal algorithmic loop, you feel drained, don't you?
Totally exhausted.
Even though you're consuming endless amounts of information or entertainment, you feel starved. And that introduces the core paradox of the Asvatha tree.
Which is what?
Well, the tree represents a cosmos that is inherently impermanent. In fact, the very word Asvatha can be etymologically linked to the phrase, that which does not last until tomorrow.
Wow. Okay.
It is a perennially changing, dying, and rebirthing canopy. Yet its very vitality presupposes a nutritive flow from an unchanging eternal root. You just can't survive purely on the horizontal buds. You need that vertical flow.
Which brings up a massive logistical question.
Okay, what is it?
How does that vertical sustenance actually reach us? I mean, we are down here in the branches, totally distracted by the horizontal noise. How does the divine energy get from the highest root all the way down to the leaves where we are actually living?
Well, to understand that transmission, the text tells us to literally look at the leaves of this cosmic tree. Verse 15.1 states that the leaves are the Chandasi, the Vedic hymns, the sacred revelations, and scriptures.
Wait, I need to push back on that.
Go ahead.
Metaphorically, calling scriptures leaves feels a little static, doesn't it? Like, leaves are biological engines. They're essentially solar panels for a tree.
Right.
Are you saying these ancient texts aren't just, lists of moral rules to follow, but are actual metabolic interfaces for processing divine energy? How does reading a hymn act like photosynthesis?
You've just hit upon the genius of the metaphor. I mean, what do leaves actually do?
They catch light.
Exactly. They take radiant light from above, an energy source that the roots and branches cannot process directly, and they translate it into consumable chemical nourishment for the organism.
Oh, wow.
By calling the sacred hymns the leaves, the text is declaring that revelation itself is the interface. The scriptures are not just rule books. They conduct the transcendent light of the Supreme into the immanent world.
So they capture divine truth and synthesize it into spiritual nourishment that a human mind can actually digest.
Precisely. Engaging with deeper knowledge is literally the process of taking divine light and turning it into something your brain can metabolize.
That is a beautiful conceptual framework.
Mm.
The roots are the divine source, the branches are the material world, the algorithmic distractions are the buds, and the spiritual knowledge is the leaf helping us process the light.
It really covers everything.
But let's ground this. Let's get out of the metaphorical tree and look at the actual sky and dirt.
Okay.
How does this cosmic architecture map onto the literal food chain? Like, how does the divine energy turn into a tomato?
That transition from the abstract to the deeply physical is where this text just really shines. In verses 15.12 and 15.13, the narrative moves away from the tree and looks at the literal cosmos.
Right.
It traces the journey of divine energy, which is called tejas, or radiance, as it illuminates the macrocosm. Kataya, speaking as the supreme divine, states, "That radiance in the sun that illumines the whole world, that in the moon and fire know that to be mine."
Let's pause on the sun for a second.
Okay.
The physical sunlight that is hitting my face through the window right now.
Well,
The text is arguing that this isn't just like a nuclear fusion reaction happening 93 million miles away in a vacuum.
no, not at all.
It's a direct physical manifestation of that divine root we just talked about.
Yes. The commentator Sakkara dives deeply into this. He notes that these natural forces, the sun, the moon, fire, they aren't autonomous random phenomena. They are direct manifestations of the Lord's sustaining existence. The sun represents pure awareness and the ultimate source of knowledge and light. The moon, or Candra, represents reflective light, cooling energy, and is often compared to how the human mind reflects consciousness.
And fire?
Fire, Agni, symbolizes transformative energy, the power to change one substance into another. The divine is the single spiritual radiance, the Brahmaprabha, that masks itself in all these physical celestial forms.
Okay, so we have a massive solar reactor in the sky providing the initial spark of life.
Yep.
But sunlight alone doesn't fill a stomach. I can't just stand in my yard, stare at the sun, and cure my hunger.
No, you definitely cannot.
So how does the system translate that raw radiation into something a human digestive tract can actually assimilate?
That requires a planetary intermediary, which the very next verse provides. The divine declares, Gam avisha kabutani dayami aham ojasa.
Meaning?
It means, entering the earth, I sustain all beings with my vital power. And I really want to draw your attention to the word avisha. It means entering, pervading, or dwelling intimately within.
So it's actively refuting the idea that the Earth is just a dead, autonomous chunk of rock floating aimlessly in space.
Completely. The Vedantic tradition introduces the concept of the antaryaman, which is the inner controller.
The inner controller.
Right. The divine permeates the very soil, the bedrock, the tectonic plates, giving the earth its stability and cohesion. When it says, he sustains all life through ojas, which means vital potency or foundational life energy, it means he is actively maintaining the gravitational balance, the ecological order.
The very ability of the dirt to hold a seed.
Exactly.
Okay, the divine is the sunlight, and the divine is the structural integrity of the soil. But we still don't have food. How do we get from irradiated dirt to the plant itself?
That brings us to one of the most beautiful and complex concepts in the text, the role of soma.
Soma.
Yes. The verse continues, Pajami Kudus Sarva Somo Bhutvarasatmaka, meaning, becoming the moon, the essence of sap, I nourish all plants.
Soma.
Yeah.
I mean, that term carries a lot of weight in ancient texts, doesn't it? It isn't just a synonym for the moon.
No, soma is an incredibly rich Vedic concept. Historically, like in the oldest rituals, soma was a sacred, intoxicating plant juice used in sacrifices.
Right.
But cosmologically, it represents the moon, and symbolically, it is the divine elixir, the cooling, liquid nectar of nourishment and bliss that circulates through the entire cosmos.
And the verse links that to plants.
Yeah. The text says the divine becomes rasatmaka. Rasa means essence, taste, juice, or sap. So the text is claiming that the divine literally becomes the liquid vitality, the actual sap, pumping inside the vegetation.
Let me make sure I'm mapping this correctly.
Go for it.
The divine light shines from the sun. The divine stability holds the soil together. And the divine sap flows through the stalks of the wheat or the vines of the tomato.
Exactly.
The food chain isn't just a biological transfer of calories. It is a grace chain.
A grace chain. That is the perfect distillation of the concept. The commentator Vallabha, who founded the Suddhadvaita school of philosophy, emphasizes exactly this point. He argues that plants are literally grace-bearing channels.
That's incredible.
Nature is functioning entirely as an expression of divine sustenance. Every ecosystem, every garden, every farm is sacred because the divine is the hidden active vitality in the photosynthesis, in the cellular growth, in the ripening of the fruit. The universe is literally conspiring to feed you.
That is an incredibly comforting thought, but I have to push back here.
Oh, why is that?
Because if I follow this logic to its conclusion, it gets a little deterministic, doesn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, if the divine is the sun, and the divine is the earth, and the divine is the sap in the plants, and the divine is the gravity holding it all together, What am I doing?
Ah, I see.
At what point does the human being actually possess any agency? Are we just passive houseplants in this grand cosmic greenhouse getting watered by the universe?
Yeah.
Where is the human element in this grace chain?
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Hmm.
that is exactly the right question to ask. And it brings us to the most intimate, active threshold of human existence. This is actually the core focus of our entire deep dive today. We've traced the divine energy from the sun to the earth to the sap in the plant. The plant has grown, it's been harvested, it's been prepared, and you have just taken a bite of that sandwich. The food is in your mouth. What happens next?
Well, biology takes over. I chew it up, I swallow it, and my stomach acids go to work.
And here is where the text zooms in from the massive macrocosm of the stars and planets down to the extreme, hidden microcosm of human physiology.
We're going inside the stomach.
Yes, we are looking at verse 15.14. This is where the magic happens, and this verse is arguably the most radical claim in the entire chapter.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's hear the verse. Let's break it down.
The Sanskrit reads, Ahawai janaro bhutva prayeshita prayaktan ha samayukta pakami anakaturvidam.
Okay, my Sanskrit is a little rusty. Take us through it piece by piece.
The first phrase, aha aishanaro bhutva, means becoming the digestive fire. And let's look at that word, vaishonara.
Vaishwanera.
It is a specific form of Agni, the universal cosmic fire that we mentioned earlier. But here, Katya is explicitly revealing himself not as a distant celestial flame, but as the biological function of metabolic heat inside the human body.
Known in Ayurveda as Jaharani,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Wait, I really want to make sure I'm understanding the literalness of this.
Sure.
The text is saying that the supreme divine is literally the stomach acid, like the metabolic heat breaking down the proteins in my lunch. It's not just a metaphor for spiritual hunger.
It is absolutely not a metaphor. The text is deadly serious. It says, he dwells in the bodies of all living beings as this physical digestive fire. Kaut is revealing himself as the digestive fire, Vaishanara, dwelling in the bodies of beings, assimilating food.
That's wild.
This function transforms external nourishment into vitality within the branches, which is us, the living creatures. The environment literally becomes the organism through this divine fire. The boundary between the external universe and the internal self is burned away in the stomach.
That completely upends how I view my own body. We think of digestion as this gross, noisy, sometimes uncomfortable chemical process.
Oh.
You hear your stomach rumbling in a quiet meeting and you think, excuse me, embarrassing biology happening here. But this text is saying, my metabolism is the exact same cosmic fire that burns in the sun.
Yes.
It's the same energy that lights up the sky, just scaled down and localized in my gut.
That is the exact revelation. It bridges the transcendental and the immanent in the most visceral way possible.
Wow.
To know the divine isn't just to look up at the sky and ponder the infinite expanse of space. It is to feel the warmth of digestion in your belly after a heavy meal. The exact same universal fire, Agni, that burns in the cosmos, acts as the digestive heat in the microcosm of your body.
Okay, but how does this fire actually operate, mechanically speaking? Because my stomach isn't literally glowing with flames.
The verse explains the mechanics brilliantly. Pratapana samayukta. This means the fire is united with or stoked by prata and apana.
Gadampana. Those are breathing terms, right?
Exactly. In yogic physiology, these are vital breath currents. Precha is the upward-moving vital air, associated with inhalation, intake, and life force.
And apana.
Apana is the downward-moving vital air, associated with exhalation, elimination, and grounding.
So if you think of the stomach as a furnace, the balance of breathing in and eliminating out acts like a bellows.
As bellows, yes.
It physically stokes this internal fire. So if you are listening to this on a treadmill right now, your breathing is heavy. That's your prey and apana working overtime to pump oxygen into that inner furnace.
That's a great way to visualize it. And what does this bellows-stoked fire actually do? Kanada finishes the verse by saying, Pakami ana katurvidam. I digest the 4 kinds of food.
4 kinds of food. If I look at a modern nutritional label, food is categorized by macronutrients, carbs, proteins, fats, or maybe by food groups like dairy and grains. What are the 4 kinds here?
In traditional Ayurvedic and yogic classification, food isn't categorized by its chemical makeup, but by how the human being physically interacts with it during ingestion.
Oh, interesting.
The 4 types are bhakya, which is food that must be chewed, like hard grains or nuts. Bhoja, food that is swallowed easily, like porridge, rice, or soft items.
Okay.
Leya, food that is licked. like pastes, honey, or certain chutneys. And kuya, food that is sucked or drunk, like liquids, soups, and juices.
Why categorize food by the way it enters the mouth? What's the physiological or spiritual significance of that?
Because different ingestion methods require different biological mechanics, different amounts of saliva, different chewing times, and crucially, different ratios of prok and apana to process.
Oh, I see.
Chewing a hard nut takes more aggressive upward and downward breath coordination than simply swallowing a liquid. By explicitly listing all four ingestion methods, the text is emphasizing that no matter how the external world enters your body, the divine fire is what breaks it down. The supreme is the ultimate agent of assimilation.
So, if I'm mapping this entire journey from start to finish,
Yeah, map it out.
the sandwich was synthesized by divine sunlight. It was grown in divine earth. It was filled with divine lunar sap. And now, it is being dissolved and assimilated into my physical cells by a divine fire, stoked by my divine breath. The entire process of eating is a closed loop of cosmic energy interacting with itself.
Yes. And do you see how this drastically changes the concept of human agency we talked about earlier? You asked if we were just passive houseplants.
Right.
The answer is no, because your body is the active crucible where the universe transforms itself. The body is no longer just a biological machine made of meat and bone. It's completely sacralized. It becomes a sacred temple of divine energy.
If digestion is a divine act, if the Lord is the one actually doing the digesting, then the act of eating can no longer just be a mindless automatic habit while you scroll through your phone.
Exactly. The commentators, particularly Ramanuja, point out that this reveals an incredible level of universal care. No creature, down to the smallest insect digesting a leaf, is outside his governance. The tradition refers to this as turning the act of eating into yajna, which means sacrifice or ritual offering. Digestion becomes a liturgical act. The Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition takes this even further, emphasizing that we should honor food as prasada, or divine mercy.
Let's talk about the practical application of this.
Yeah.
Because theology is great, but I still have to eat lunch today.
Sure.
If I realize that Vaifanar, the divine fire, is what is digesting my food, how does that actually change my Tuesday afternoon meal?
It creates what the sources call a devout ecology. Practically, it suggests adopting that prasada regimen.
Which entails what?
Before you eat, you pause. You literally recall verse 15.14. You acknowledge that the fire in your stomach is the divine, and you mentally offer the food to that fire before you consume it.
You're offering the universe back to the universe.
Yes. And this naturally leads to eating with intense gratitude and, crucially, with moderation.
I want to stop on that word, moderation.
Uh-oh.
Because a clever mind could easily twist this theology to justify some terrible habits. If the divine is the one digesting my food and the fire can burn anything, does that mean a late-night junk food binge is a spiritual act?
I don't know about that.
Can I crush a family-sized bag of heavily processed artificial potato chips at 1 a.m. and say, hey, don't judge me, I'm just feeding the cosmic fire?
It's a funny loophole to try and exploit, but unfortunately for our late-night cravings, the metaphysical rules still apply. Remember the Gudas we talked about earlier?
The qualities of material nature.
Yes. Sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Right. Clarity, passion, and inertia. The things entangling the horizontal branches.
They apply directly to food. The sources are clear that feeding the internal fire heavily processed, stale, or tamasic junk food dampens the divine ojas, the vital energy.
So you're hurting the fire.
Exactly. Moderation is required to tame rajas, the restless, insatiable drive to consume more flavors, and tamas, the inertial dullness that makes you want to sleep after a massive, unhealthy meal.
That makes sense.
If you overeat, or if you eat food devoid of real solar and lunar nourishment, you are literally suffocating the divine fire. You aren't honoring it. You are smothering it with ash.
That makes visceral sense. I mean, you wouldn't walk up to a beautifully maintained sacred hearth fire in a temple and throw a garbage bag full of wet plastic onto it and expect it to burn brightly.
No, you would not.
You would offer it dry, high-quality, fragrant wood.
And when you view your body as that temple hearth, your diet naturally aligns with health. You begin to rely on the Antariaman, the indwelling Lord, rather than your own ego's erratic cravings.
You realize you are not the ultimate owner or architect of your body. You are a responsible operator.
You are a steward of the flame.
This imagery of the internal fire is so incredibly potent. And what fascinates me is that this idea of a fire in the belly isn't exclusively an ancient Eastern concept. We use that exact phrase all the time in the modern West, but usually in a very different context.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if an athlete or a startup founder has a fire in the belly, it means they have this ruthless, unstoppable, almost predatory drive to succeed. The sources provided for this deep dive actually draw some really illuminating parallels between the Gita's concept of Vaishvanara and Western philosophy. Let's dig into that because I think it highlights how unique the Gita's framework really is.
The contrast is highly revealing about how different cultures view human desire. The sources specifically compare the Gita's digestive fire to the theories of Jacques Lacan, the 20th century French psychoanalyst.
Lacan?
Yeah, Lacan built his theories around the concept of desire and the drives, and he views human desire as an endless, insatiable metabolic fire.
Insatiable meaning like it can absolutely never be satisfied no matter what you feed it.
Exactly. For Lacan, desire is fundamentally grounded in lack.
Lack, like something missing.
Yeah. He argued that the human subject is born incomplete, alienated from itself, and is therefore constantly chasing after something, anything to fill the void. He called the ultimate unattainable object of desire the objet petit.
So we just keep chasing this. Objet petit.
Right. Our drives circulate endlessly around objects we can never truly possess. Lacan often compares this desire to a burning that cannot be quenched, a hunger that grows the more you feed it.
If I am understanding Lacan right, his view is that we are essentially walking, talking furnaces of anxiety. We are constantly shoveling coal money, relationships, status, consumer goods into a fire that never actually heats the house. It just demands more coal.
That is a brutally accurate summary of Lacanian lack. And the sources also bring up Arthur Schopenhauer and Friedrich Nietzsche to expand on this Western view.
Okay, how do they fit in?
Well, Schopenhauer talked about the universal will, which he saw as a blind, irrational, ceaseless striving that permeates all phenomena. In his view, our bodily drives, our hunger, our sexual desires are just localized objectifications of this horrifying, insatiable cosmic will.
So we are slaves to it.
Yes. And later, Nietzsche adapted this into the will to power, positing it as the fundamental cosmic force driving all creation, domination, and destruction.
You know, I want to validate this Western perspective for a second because, frankly, Lacan and Schopenhauer aren't wrong about how it feels to be a human being in the modern world.
They're definitely on to something.
Their views are incredibly accurate for the modern human experience. Human desire does feel like an endless void much of the time. You buy the new phone, and a week later you want the next model.
Yep.
You get the promotion, and immediately you are stressed about the next rung on the ladder. It really does feel like a tragic, unfillable furnace.
It is a profoundly valid description of the human condition under the influence of the goose. When you are completely entangled in the horizontal branches chasing the sense objects, Lacan's lack is exactly what you experience.
Right.
But here is where the Bhagavad Gita offers a radical alternative framework for the exact same biological reality. Western thinkers often see this internal drive, this fire, as something inherently tragic, an insatiable hunger that leads inevitably to suffering.
And the Gita.
The Gita sees this metabolic fire, Vaishvanara, as a sustaining divine presence. It is not a void, it is a presence. It is a cozy hearth fire that keeps the house warm and integrates us with the cosmos.
So both traditions agree there's a roaring fire inside of us. But one sees it as a curse of endless craving, and the other sees it as an instrument of divine grace. Why the massive divergence? What is the variable that flips this from tragedy to sacrament?
This raises an important question. The variable is ego. It is attachment and identification.
Attachment to what?
To the body. If you think you are the one doing the digesting, if you identify exclusively with the perishable physical body, what the Gita calls the kara, then yes, you will always be hungry.
You will experience that Lacanian lack.
Exactly, because a finite body can never consume enough to become infinite. Your desires will multiply out of control, branching horizontally into the world, forever seeking the next hit of dopamine.
Because the ego is a bottomless pit. It's a bucket with a hole in it. It always wants more viyas, more sense objects, because it erroneously believes that consuming the world will make it whole.
Perfectly stated. But if you shift your identification, if you shift your vertical reference upwards toward the root of the tree, everything changes.
How so?
When you realize that the divine is the one digesting, you find peace. The metabolic fire isn't your personal endless craving. It is the Lord actively sustaining your physical vehicle so that you have the time and energy to attain higher wisdom. The Gita transforms the tragedy of endless desire into the sacrament of divine sustenance just by changing who you think is eating.
That is a staggering shift in perspective. Instead of being trapped inside a dying biological machine that constantly screams at you to feed it, you are the host of a divine fire that is actively turning the universe into your own vitality. It gives meaning to the mundane.
Really does.
Okay, but let's follow this energy. We've traced the sunlight to the plant to the stomach, and the fire has broken it down. The physical body is fueled. But the human experience is way more than just metabolism, blood flow, and physical survival.
Yeah.
What happens to the energy generated by the digestive fire? Where does it go after it leaves the gut?
It moves upward. We are transitioning from the purely physiological to the psychological and the spiritual.
Okay.
The very next verse in the text, 15.1 tune, makes this incredible leap. Ketan says, Sarvasya ka hati sanavyo, which translates to, I am seated in the heart of all beings.
The heart. So the divine presence moves from the stomach, the center of metabolism, up to the heart.
Yes, and it's important to clarify that in this ancient context, the heart, the hadi, isn't just the muscular organ pumping blood.
It's more than that.
It represents the very center of consciousness, the core of the self, where cognitive awareness and emotion converge. The divine is deeply seated there as the inner controller, utilizing the vitality generated by the stomach.
And what exactly is the divine doing seated in the heart? Is it just watching?
Not at all. It is highly active. Katans continues the verse, Matas materyanam apuhana, meaning, from me arise memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness.
Memory and knowledge. I absolutely understand. If God is the ultimate truth, it makes sense that God provides the capacity to know and remember things. But why forgetfulness?
Oh, that's the best part.
Why is apahana, forgetfulness, listed alongside knowledge as a divine gift? Usually, forgetting where I put my keys feels like a flaw in the system, not a divine feature.
It is actually a profound mercy. Think about the sheer volume of data your senses process every single second.
It's a lot.
If you remembered every single sensory input, every minor physical pain, every irrelevant detail of your past lives and this current life simultaneously, your mind would literally shatter. You would be paralyzed by the noise.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Forgetfulness apahana is the essential cognitive filter. It removes the distractions, it allows trauma to heal over time, it clears the mental workspace so you can actually focus on the present moment and attain jhana, true knowledge.
Oh, that makes total sense. If my brain didn't have a built-in spam filter, I wouldn't be able to process anything meaningful. The hardware would just crash.
Exactly. So the exact same divine energy that digests your lunch Vajjanara is the underlying energy powering your memories, your ability to reason, and your ability to filter out noise.
The psychological immanence of the divine is just as real and just as mechanical as the physiological immanence.
Precisely.
So,
Yeah.
what does this all mean? I want to try and synthesize this whole system with a modern analogy, because this is really clicking for me now.
Let's hear it.
Let's compare it to a computer system. The cosmic energy, the sun, the moon, the earth, is the massive external power plant generating the raw electricity.
Okay, the grid.
Right. And the stomach Vaishnaura is the power supply unit, the PSU, inside your PC chassis. It takes that raw, alternating current from the wall and converts it into usable, regulated direct current for the motherboard.
Yes.
And then verse 15:14, where the divine sits in the heart, giving memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. That is the CPU and the RAM.
The processor.
That's the processor running the actual software of your mind, storing data, retrieving it, and deleting temp files so that the system doesn't lag. It's all the exact same electrical current, just performing different, increasingly complex functions at different levels of the machine.
That is a phenomenal, highly accurate, modern synthesis of the concept. It is all the exact same current. The divine is the power plant, the power supply, and the processor.
Amazing.
But the text takes it even one step further in the second half of that same verse. Stan says, Vedaiska sarvair aham iva vedya. By all the Vedas, I alone am to be known.
What does that mean in this context?
He is not only the hardware and the electricity running the system, he is the ultimate data, the ultimate object of all the software, all the knowledge. He's the author of the Vedas, and he is the knower of the Vedas.
Wow. So the knowledge we use to find God is also God. The search engine, the query, and the search result are all the same entity.
Yes. And this realization leads us to the ultimate climax of the chapter. We've moved from the tree, to the cosmos, to the stomach, to the heart, and now we arrive at the culmination of the Gita's philosophy.
Which is?
The realization of the Purottama.
Let's slow down here and really unpack this, because this sounds like the grand unified theory of the text. What exactly is the Purottama?
Purottama translates literally to the supreme person or the highest spirit. Verses 15.16 through 15.I explain this concept by categorizing all of reality into 3 distinct levels.
Okay, 3 levels.
First, there's the Kanara Puro. Kanara means perishable, mutable, or changing. This encompasses all manifest existence, every physical body, every shifting emotion, every decaying star, every sprouting leaf.
It's the entire realm of Sasara that we live in.
Yes, it's the downward growing branches of the tree, constantly sprouting and dying. To live identifying only with the Connor is to live in constant anxiety because you are attaching your identity to things that are guaranteed to decay. Then above that, there is the Akanara Purua. Akara means imperishable or unchanging. This represents the unmanifest, the eternal witness consciousness, the static soul that observes the changes but never decays itself.
So you have the turbulent changing world and you have the silent unchanging soul. That sounds like a standard dualism. Body versus spirit.
It does, and many philosophies stop right there.
Yeah.
But Ketan goes one step further. He declares that he is the Puruttama, the supreme person who transcends both the perishable world and the imperishable soul, yet actively sustains them both.
He transcends both.
Yes, he is not just another entity sitting outside the universe watching it spin. He is the ultimate ontological ground upon which both the mutable and the immutable depend. He is the unity of being itself.
So he's integrating the dynamic, moving parts of reality with the static, silent parts without any contradiction.
Exactly.
So the Puruttama isn't just sitting on a cloud somewhere apart from the universe judging it. He is the universe, but he is also completely beyond it. He is the root, the sap, the fire, and the silent witness all at once.
That is the essence of Puruttama Yoga, which the final verse of the chapter calls the Guhyatama Shastram, the most secret or profoundly hidden teaching.
Why is it secret?
It is secret not because Kankan is hiding it maliciously, but because it requires a massive, almost impossible shift in human perception to grasp it. You have to stop identifying exclusively with the perishable branches.
You have to see the whole tree.
You have to realize that your very existence, your breathing, your digestion, your memory, your ability to forget is completely dependent on and permeated by the Supreme Person. When you can recognize this entire unbroken chain from the inverted cosmic tree to the sun, to the soil, to the plants, to the stomach, to the heart, to the Supreme, you attain what the text calls true wisdom and complete fulfillment.
Let's take a breath and zoom out, because this has been a truly mind-altering journey, and we've covered a staggering amount of metaphysical ground today.
We really have.
We started with a simple, mundane act of eating a sandwich. But if we trace it back through the lens of Chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, that sandwich is revealed to be a cosmic miracle.
Literally.
It begins as raw starlight from the sun. It becomes lunar sap, nourished by the moon, grounded in the stability of the earth. You take a bite, and it is transmuted into raw human vitality by Vaishnara, a divine cosmic fire burning right inside your belly.
Stoked by the bellows of your own breath.
Exactly. And then that energy flows upward to your heart, powering your very thoughts, your memories, your ability to filter out the noise of the world, and your capacity to know the universe.
It completely dismantles the illusion of human autonomy. We are not independent, isolated machines wandering a dead rock. We are porous, continuous with the cosmos, sustained at every single millisecond by a divine grace that feeds our bodies and illumines our minds.
You know, at the start of this deep dive, we talked about how we view biology as plumbing. It's mechanical, it's routine. We think we are just biological engines burning fuel until we break down. But stepping into the metaphysics of the Gita, that mechanical, tragic view of life just shatters. We aren't plumbing. We are altars. We are the living, breathing site of an ongoing cosmic sacrifice. The sources say that we are kept alive by an unseen vertical nourishment. So here is a thought for you to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Okay.
The next time you sit down to eat, before you take that first bite, or even if you are just taking a sip of water right now, just pause. Listen to your own breathing, the prashaya flowing in, the apana flowing out. Feel the anticipation in your stomach, and realize that you aren't just a machine chewing food. You are participating in a vast, ancient, cosmic ritual. When that fire in your belly flares up to digest your meal, who is really eating the food?